Good Sunday morning and welcome to Inside Tennessee. I'm your moderator, John Becker. Turnout, the story on Election Day, and what a day it was. Take a look at these totals. This was Election Day votes in 2020. You see, we almost beat that by 10% in this election. That caused some long lines and delays. For a recap, let's turn first to reporter Vinay Simla.
The more people that are engaged, the better government we have.
And more people were engaged if they had the patience. At Ritta Elementary, Gibbs Elementary, and Bluegrass Elementary, voters complained their polling place ran out of ballots and long lines at Bearden Middle.
And some folks came out and they said, we don't have 2 hours. You know, we can't stay.
This year, voting sites at Chilhowie and Shannondale saw almost double the voters on Election Day as they had in 2020. In all, 10 precincts saw 50% more Election Day voters. 3 saw 80% more.
We did not expect to see the totals we've seen today. It is crazy.
In some polling places, every voter got the same ballot, and election officials tore them out of a book. Election Administrator Chris Davis says so many people voted, they ran out and had to use emergency ballots. In other polling places, voters got different ballots. Election officials printed them for each person. Davis says because of the demand, some polling places didn't have enough printers, and election officials had to bring more.
We have to be nimble enough to either get it there in no time or have it there already, ready to go up if we need it.
State Representative Gloria Johnson says she'd like people to wait no more than 5 minutes when they vote.
I want everybody who shows up at the polls to be able to vote.
Back here with a big picture look at the voting locations across the city of Knoxville. These are the precincts, and I want you to think of this as a compass because everywhere on this compass we saw dramatic rises at certain precincts. Here are 3 examples. The first, 24Q. This is Sequoia Hills. From 2020 to 2022, Election Day voting up 69%. Then you go up here to East Knoxville. This is Chilhowie, and you see this is Precinct 31. They're up 91%. All right, let's go north. Shannondale up there, 35, up 93%. All across the county, we saw these aberrations in turnout where we were way up. So to break it down, we're going to turn to our panel. Susan Richardson Williams is the Republican, Don Bosch, the Democrat. My colleague John North joins us as well for more on this discussion. Susan, let's start with you. When I mention those 3 precincts all across the map, what strikes you about the turnout we've seen?
Well, the turnout was great. It was a beautiful day, and people went to vote. And I think there were both sides. The Democrats and the Republicans were very passionate. They had issues they were focused on. The Republicans were looking at the pocketbook issues, high price of gas, the high price of food. Democrats clearly were focused on abortion and on climate change and more cultural and social issues. What was really interesting, though, in 2020, let's don't forget we were in the middle of a pandemic, and so there weren't as many people that normally vote in a presidential election because of that. I think they were just frightened to go to the polls. But this past Tuesday was pretty special with the vote.
We pointed this out on election night, Don, because this is a rare place where both you and Susan agreed.
Which is rare.
Susan made the point on election night. She thought Republican voters would turn out en masse on certain issues. You made the point that Democratic voters would turn out en masse on certain issues, and both of you were right.
It is right, and we've seen just in how close some of the local legislative races really were, particularly the 2 that we'll talk about later in the show. But, you know, I look down at the Sequoia Hills 24Q, I think it is, and you know, that's a blue district. That also is a district that had a contested House race that got a lot of attention. There really only were 2 within Knox County that were going to be hard fought and close. And so if you look at those counties with the percentages, or excuse me, the precincts where those percentages were much higher, I think they were probably driven at least in part by those competitive races.
Not just the issues we were talking
Correct.
about. John North, you broke it down looking at what we saw on election night into where Democrats tend to turn out in mass and where Republicans turn out in higher numbers across the precincts in the county and the city. What did you find?
Well, I got curious about early turnout, which were so accustomed to now sort of leading the pack, if you will. Everybody goes and votes early.
Usually that's been the majority. Early voting trumps election day.
It is the custom. It has been the custom, and Tuesday night showed it's not always the custom, because I saw several districts which I thought were fascinating. For example, with Democrats who far exceeded on Tuesday turning out compared with early, such as Bearden Elementary. That was one, and we heard about lines there. West High School, same thing. Pond Gap, kind of crazy. Everybody in the Pond Gap neighborhood said, you know what, let's go vote. And that's what they did.
And let's wait till the day of, yeah.
Yeah, we'll wait till the day of. We'll wait till Tuesday. I saw that same kind of phenomena, and again, we sort of were watching it evolve Tuesday night with the Republican Party in terms of people clearly exceeding what had been early voting. Bearden Middle was one. We heard about problems with Bearden Middle. Hardin Valley Elementary, really fascinating to me. It was a huge 80-20 split for Bill Lee over Jason Martin. And the GOP turnout was so much bigger at Hardin Valley Elementary precinct than it was for early voting. Another one was Gap Creek, East Knox County. You know, you were there.
We talked about some technical problems that happened. We heard that from Administrative Election Chris Davis. It's worth reminding our viewers that just a couple of years ago, we had those electronic machines that you went in and circled, and there was never any evidence of problems with those machines.
Right.
But county leaders made the decision, state leaders made the decision that the county leaders needed to adopt a new system.
I think administrators would have said, you know what we've got is just fine, but there was this sort of perceived fear about legitimacy, so we went back to paper.
Well, and that takes longer. You know, you have to print your ballot, you have to sit down and mark your little squares, you know, and of course, don't forget, we had these 4 constitutional amendments that people were actually reading, and so that took a lot longer.
Well, we can thank the Stone Age method to the ruse and myth of election fraud created by former President Trump.
On that, we're going to take a quick break and back with more on the State House and the Senate, as well as those constitutional